All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.
Coming up on episode 212 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the 2022 Hyundai Tucson Hybrid, the single-motor Polestar 2. Rivian won't be doing any tank turns anytime soon. Robbie shares some highlights from IAA Mobility in Munich. Lucid Air can go 520 miles on a charge. And GM picks a lidar supplier for Ultra Cruise. All coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. This is episode 212 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abu-Al-Samad of Guidehouse Insights.
I'm Nicole Wakelin of Auto by Tel.
And I am Roberto Baldwin of, let's say, Wired.
Excellent. What, Nicole, have you been driving this week?
Well, it actually wasn't this week because I was out driving, doing drive programs and running away to Disney World for the week. But I want to talk about the car I drove like 2 weeks ago. I had a chance to drive the Polestar 2. They did a launch for the new single motor, which is the front wheel drive, and the new dual motor, which is their all wheel drive. This is the first time I've ever driven a Polestar. Have you guys ever driven these before? I'm betting you have.
We have.
I have.
Yeah, I had one back in July for like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And they actually launched the dual motor last year.
Yes,
so
but
they've had the dual motor around for a while.
The dual motor they've had around for a while, but there's one change to it. They have now, well, there's more than one change. They made a lot of little changes, but they now have this a mechanical heat pump in this, and it increases the range. And they said it increases the range by about, and it's optional. It's not a standard thing. It's part of this package that's the Plus package, and it's like $4,000 for the Plus package, but it has a whole bunch of other stuffs in it, hence the Plus. But they say it increases the range by about 10%. They can't put that in any of the official range things though, but because it's optional, the EPA says no, you can't include that. That's not really official. It doesn't count. But you can get it.
Unless they certify it separately, which they would have the option of doing.
Okay, the way they said it was like because it's an optional thing, not a standard thing, you couldn't really include it. But that
I mean, if they certified it separately, if they made it part of the trim level and they certified it separately, but then that adds a whole lot more cost.
How much is it? How much does it cost to get the EPA to certify a car?
More than $30.
I mean, to go through
more than $30. Huh? Well, then forget it, Roberto. That's completely unreasonable. I wouldn't pay a dime over $29.
More than two pizzas.
I mean, it's on the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Is it really?
To go through the whole testing process and do all the paperwork.
So wait, when you have
it might even be upwards of $1 million.
Wait, so when you have some of those cars that like, I can't even think of one, like the TLX, there's 15 different variants. There's like the A spec and there's this and there's that. Do they have to certify every single one of those separately, or is that one big certification?
Typically, they will certify each powertrain combination, but not necessarily each trim level.
Okay, because sometimes the trims get different. It's the same powertrain, but this trim gets a little bit better than that trim because it has, whatever.
Yeah, well, it depends on where, like, what the weight is, because when you do the certification, the vehicle goes, as part of, because they do the testing on a dynamometer. When they figure out the loading for the dynamometer, part of that is simulating the weight. So it's a test weight class, and these are like about 100 to 150 pound bands, So between 2,000 and 2,150, between 2,150 and 2,300 pounds, and so on. So if the options that are or the equipment that's included on a particular trim level bumps it up into another test weight class, then then they will have to recertify it. If they can get it within that same range for the test weight class, and it's got the same powertrain, then they don't have to certify it separately.
Wow. So now instead of looking at those EPA numbers and thinking this is a pain in the neck to write up, I'm going to think, oh my gosh, this cost them a small fortune to get all these numbers.
There are
exactly.
There are 6 trim levels.
Yeah,
there
really?
Are 6 trim levels for the Acura TLX on the EPA site.
Yeah,
so they did 6 separate cars. They did an all-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive A-Spec, front-wheel drive, the front-wheel drive A-Spec, and then, of course, the new Type S and the Type S with
that's a lot
performance
of
tires.
Wow. I don't think I realized.
But it's also Acura money, so it's just like...
Yeah, like, here, have another money. No, but I thought, I knew that it was expensive, but I just didn't think about the fact, I'm like, oh, you mean every single, like, is all those variants? Wow. Well, I can see why Polestar might not want to do that just for the heat pump.
They'll probably just make it standard in, 18 months, and then they'll re-EPA it then.
That would make sense if they do it standard. But yeah, right now it's not. It's only in the Plus pack, $4,000 for the Plus pack, but you also get a glass panoramic sunroof, including the projected Polestar symbol on the roof, which you got to say, like, that alone is worth $4,000.
It's worth $2,500.
$2,500. Weave Tech charcoal zinc.
So that leaves $1,500 for the heat pump.
For the heat pump, a Harman Kardon premium audio system with fresh air subwoofer. I don't even know what that means. I'm looking.
All
at
it plays is Fresh Air with Terry Gross.
That's it. That's all you get. You get one thing. That's all you get.
It superimposes the low frequencies from Terry Gross's show on top of whatever.
So that's always in the background. What do you get? High level illumination, interior inductive charging, 15 watts for a smartphone, rear 4 lid-in lid with bag holder, and a heated steering wheel and heated rear seat. All of that, $4,000.
Heated rear seat for your puppies.
That's a bargain.
For your puppies.
Yeah.
What, you want heated rear seat? Your friends, you don't want your friends to have cold butts where you're like up in the front seat. Like, my butt's nice and warm. What friends? They can just get their own.
We had a Del Sol, and I bought a Del Sol from a friend, and when he bought it, I'm like, what about giving people rides? He's like, I guess I don't give people rides. And then I bought the Del Sol from him, and that was our car. And people are like, what about giving people rides? I'm all, I guess they just follow us. I don't know.
They're just going to have to drive in their own cars. They're going to have to do it the hard way.
Figure it out. I'm not a bus.
I'm not a bus. Wow. There's our title for the show. I'm not a bus. Okay, so in addition to the heat pump, so you have the single motor, which is and it's like again, we're all about $4,000. It's $4,000 less than the dual range. It drives differently. I mean, you know that it doesn't have as much oomph, as much power. It doesn't, if you're looking for the most performance. But if you're not really all that concerned about the dip in performance, it's still just it's really fine. Sounds like I'm like, we're fine, it's all fine, but it's perfectly fine. I would not go for the dual range unless I really wanted all-wheel drive. Like, unless Robbie, I wouldn't buy it if I were you, because you're in sunny California where you don't have to worry about snow. Sam, if it were you, I'd go for the dual range because you're in the wilds of Michigan where it snows forever.
The
wilds, I know. So
living in a cave.
He cooks over fire. But if you want the dual motor, that's actually coming out next month. That's the new one's supposed to be out in October, but the single range isn't due out till January, so you'll have to, or the single motor rather, isn't due out till January, so you'll have to make do for a little while. I thought it was really neat. It's a very interesting. It's such a plain car. It's very there's nothing happening. There's nothing to attract your attention inside. It's the most mellow, minimalist car I think I've ever driven in my life.
It's very Swedish, even beyond its parent company. Well, not parent. I don't even know what you call Volvo and Polestar now anymore because they're part of Geely, and they kind of we're part of Volvo, but not real. I mean, the Polestar headquarters is right and whatever.
But
Volvo owns the majority of Polestar, and Geely owns the rest of it.
But Volvo is the Polestar is so clean, minimalist, no fanciness that's unnecessary inside, that it actually makes a Volvo look overdone. Like, that's how simplified and how clean. Yeah, it's just like there's nothing. And the fact that it comes in 5 shades of black. It's like
gray.
It's all
levels
these
of
grays.
gray.
Yeah, it's like, and they give them all these really cutesy names. It's like thunder, void, moon, magnesium, midnight. Oh, there is one bright color, snow. But it's basically light gray, dark gray, medium gray, off gray, and charcoal gray. Like, they're all just gray. Yeah. The only color in all these images are the yellow brake calipers that like pop out from behind the front wheels. That's it. So yes, it was interesting to drive it. I mean, being the first time I've ever driven this, I did think it's weird because it's so clean inside, and it almost feels like underdone. Like I wanted them to do just a little bit more car in my car, a little bit more pop in my car. The little logo on the panoramic sunroof was just not enough.
You want more buttons?
And there was a logo too in the gear shift. Like the gear shift has a cutout in the middle, and it shines a little Polestar logo like in the gear shift. Like it's
that's
like,
2 logos. What else do you want? They're Swedish.
2 logos. It
is not a braggadocious country. It is very much like.
Well, there's also one on the steering wheel.
There's one. Yes, but that one doesn't count because everybody has that. I wanted like the one on the ceiling, on the roof of the car, is cool, and the one in the actual gear shift is cool. But I really liked it. It was neat to drive. I don't know what I was expecting, but it was so minimalist. I was almost caught off guard. But it was a nice car to drive. Very quiet, very comfortable. And like I said, whether you get the single or the dual motor, they're both responsive vehicles. So it's not like you get the single motor and suddenly you think, oh my gosh, I'm driving this like slow, sluggish, nothing of a vehicle. It's still a responsive powertrain, and I wouldn't.
Well, that's the nice thing about an EV.
Yeah.
You know, because you've got that instant torque. Even with the single motor, you've still got, I think, 260 horsepower, something like that. You know, and the dual motor is 400 horsepower, and it's surprisingly quick.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you look at this thing, it doesn't look like a sports car. You know, it doesn't look like something that should be going 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds.
It really doesn't.
It feels
it looks like
really
this
quick.
sort of. It's this super mild-mannered sedan. In fact, it was kind of funny when they were all sort of parked across the street from the hotel where we were staying, and I didn't realize they were out there initially. Like, I didn't really. Normally, you see all the cars from a program. You're like, oh, there's all the cars we're driving. And I had this moment. I'm like, where are the things? I'm like, wait. Oh, that's 5 of them right across the street. That is them right there. Like, you kind of, they're just they're so mild-mannered. But what did you say? Horsepower, the single motor is 231 horsepower. Is that what you said, Sam?
Oh, was it 230? Okay.
231 horsepower.
I said 260, but.
Oh, you gave it too much. 231 in the single motor with, like tone it down. This is a Swedish car. 243 pound-feet of torque, where the dual has 408 and 487. So it's a pretty significant difference. It's not a minor difference, and yeah, you do feel it, but that 231 and that instant torque in the single motor, you don't miss the extra from the dual motor in a way that you think, oh man, there's no performance to this. This is drudgery. No, it's still really fun to drive. I enjoyed them both.
You know what's insane?
The nice thing about.
Oh, you know what's insane is that the engine, that powertrain that's in the Polestar 2, it's in the XC40 Recharge. So you get in that little like SUV and you're like, oh, this is fine. And you push down the accelerator and all of a sudden you're just slammed up against your seat. And you're like, what is happening in this tiny little SUV?
Yeah, you know, and then the nice thing about, you know, the fact that it only comes in, you know, these monochromatic shades, you know, and it's got a fairly nondescript design, is that, you know, you could probably drive it at 120 miles an hour. And, you know, cops probably wouldn't even notice you drive by.
It's invisible.
Yeah, it's like a stealth fighter.
Like you're driving a Mustang
just blends into the
Mach-E and
background.
it's bright red or something, these bright, vibrant colors, you stand out. This is just like you could be going faster and all the cops going to see is a Mustang.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Just fly past the Mustang. What was that? I don't know. Wind?
Wind. Who knows? Yeah. But, yeah. So it was a fun car to drive. I enjoyed it.
Cool. All right. I had the Hyundai Tucson Hybrid, the 2022 Hyundai Tucson Hybrid. And, you know, when they revealed the new Tucson, was it this year or was it last year? I can't remember.
This year.
I think it was early this year when, Yeah, I think it was early this year when they first showed it off. Yeah, the thing that struck me about it was it looks significantly larger than the old Tucson. And it is larger. I mean, it's like 6 inches longer. It basically splits the difference between the old Tucson and the old Santa Fe. So it's a surprisingly large vehicle, although, it turns out it's actually right in the same ballpark as most of the competitors in that same segment, like the CR-V and the RAV4 and the Escape. But it just, partly I think, kind of the proportions of it actually make it look longer even than the old one. Because the old one had kind of this stubby design, especially at the front and at the back, whereas this one, kind of carved off more. And it's an interesting design. It's a new design direction for Hyundai. We started to see this last year on the new Elantra, with kind of the faceted side panels and everything, sharp edges, moving away from the fluidic design, I think they called it before, to this more, almost crystalline shape to it. And then the other thing that they did with the Tucson, especially in the front, is you've got this hidden lighting. When it's turned off, you see this big, what looks like a big black grill, and again, with kind of these diamond shapes in it. And then as soon as you start it, big sections on either end of it light up from behind. So, you don't see the lights when it's off. It just all blends together, but then it all lights up. And we first saw it a couple of years ago at the LA Auto Show on a concept that they had. And they brought the same idea to production. And I think it's a cool look. And as with before, they have a conventional internal combustion version, but this year they're adding, they added a hybrid, and there's also a plug-in hybrid version coming in a few months. I think that launches early 2022. I don't think it's available quite yet. The hybrid is the same powertrain that is in the new Kia Sorento hybrid. So it's the 1.6 liter turbo, which, Hyundai and Kia have had various versions of this for several years in a variety of different products. In this case here, when it's paired up as part of the hybrid system, it's got 180 horsepower, 195 foot-pounds of torque. And it's paired up here with a 44 kilowatt electric motor and 1.4 kilowatt hour lithium-ion battery. So the total output of the total system output, 226 horsepower, 258 foot-pounds of torque. And it's really smooth driving, the powertrain, unlike, and it feels very natural, because unlike Toyota, Hyundai does their hybrids using a conventional 6-speed automatic transmission. They don't have this CVT style setup for their hybrid system that Toyota does. And on most of the Toyota hybrids, when you accelerate, you put your foot down, you hear the engine rev up to about 4,000 RPM, and it sits there until the engine catches up to it. That motorboating effect, you don't get that with Hyundai hybrids. They feel much more natural. But this thing has enough horsepower, enough electric power, 59 horsepower from the electric motor, that it can do a surprising amount of electric-only driving when the battery's charged up. You can go easily a couple of miles, and if you're light on the accelerator, you can pull away from a stop and drive for quite a ways on just electricity alone without ever starting the engine, which is surprising. And then even when it does start up, you don't feel any shuddering or anything. The engine's quite quiet. So I think the powertrain is really good. The interior of the new Tucson is interesting, because when you look at it, when you see pictures of it,
interesting,
it looks very modern. And I think it's a good design. It's got a large touchscreen display in the center, and you've got a digital instrument, rectangular digital panel in front of you for the instrument cluster. And the way it flows down, it doesn't have, unlike a lot of modern cars, the touchscreen is not sitting up like a tablet on top of the dashboard. It's integrated and it flows down from the dash. You've got a flush surface, and when you look at it from the side, it kind of folds under. It looks like it folds underneath at the bottom. I think it's a really nice design, although all of the climate controls and everything along the bottom of that surface below the touchscreen are all also capacitive touch controls. So that there's a volume. There's no volume knob. It's all touch controls, which I'm not crazy about. The other thing is, even though it looks good, when you start touching surfaces, you find that most of the surfaces in there are actually hard plastic surfaces. They're nicely grained, so they don't look particularly cheap, but they don't feel premium when you touch them, which at the price point of the one that I was driving, the one I had was the limited all-wheel drive. It was $37,350, and then I think there's $1,000 delivery charge on top of that, so $38,500 for that, and it doesn't feel particularly premium for what you get. Now you can get the base blue hybrid all-wheel drive starting at $29,000. And I don't think that there's a front-wheel drive hybrid. No, you don't. There's no front-wheel drive hybrid. So the hybrid Tucson is only available with all-wheel drive, and it's a little on the pricey side, given the way it feels inside. It is very roomy. The back seat, there's lots of headroom, lots of leg room. There's lots of cargo space in the back. We took it to, took Daisy and my wife and I, and we went out to the lake and had the roll-up paddleboard and chairs and stuff in the back. There's plenty of room for everything. So that was good. Lots of equipment on the Limited. It's got the full suite of driver assist features, adaptive cruise control, highway drive assist, which is basically a kind of a level 2 lane centering system, which works really well on Hyundai and Kia vehicles. The forward collision alert, the whole gamut. You got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but like I said, I'm not crazy about the touch controls for the audio and the climate controls along the bottom surface of that center stack. But I do like the way it looks. I just not crazy about the way it all feels. So that's one other thing, the fuel economy that I got didn't really match up with the EPA numbers, which is kind of unusual these days. It's EPA rated at 37 miles per gallon. 37 city, 36 highway. I only got 33.
Ooh, that's a pretty big difference.
I only got 33. Yeah. When I had the Sorento hybrid for the launch late last year, it has the same powertrain in there. It actually is slightly longer because it's got a third row in there, although it's a small one. And when I had it, it was wintertime. It was cold out. And I actually got, I think, 36 with that one. So I'm not sure why this one only got 33. Even driving around town, where I was able to get lots of regen, I still didn't get it much over about 34 and a half. And then with highway driving, it was a little bit less than that. So it averaged out over the week to about 33 miles per gallon, which is not, it's not terrible, but compared to what you can get with the Toyota Highlander, which is even larger, it's not hard to get 35 out of a Highlander, or 40 out of a RAV4 hybrid. It's not exceptional. So that's the Hyundai Tucson Limited Hybrid All-Wheel Drive.
So many words.
That is a lot of words for a not huge car.
It's longer than the car.
It's a good-sized car. Yeah. So, Robbie, you drove some stuff, but you can't tell us about it, right?
Yeah, so I drove some stuff. You know what? And there's a third thing that I drove because we bought a car. But I'll talk about the other things first.
Oh.
So I drove the BMW iX and the BMW i4, which are their latest EVs. It's the 5th generation of BMW's eDrive. Sorry, they have eDrive, which is the powertrain, and they have iDrive, which is the infotainment system. Don't ask me why. And I can't tell you how well they did or did not drive, but I did drive them, and you'll find out about them at the end of this month and the middle of next month. But EVs from BMW, which shouldn't be surprising. BMW the i3, well, the i8 was sort of a halvesy, but yeah, 5th generation. So. It'll be when I can tell you about it, it'll be interesting to talk about it in relation to what everyone else is doing. We have the EQS, we have the e-trons up there, and so it'll be a conversation. I don't.
That we can't have yet.
We can't have yet. We can talk about though another EV, which is the 2022 Kona Electric. Just recently refreshed, and then a few days later my wife and I went down and bought one. So now we have a 2022 Kona Electric. It is the refresh is they refreshed the front, the front of the vehicle. They lowered the price, and I'm sure they probably did a couple other things. For the most part though, it's pretty much the same car. 258 miles of range. It is astoundingly odd that Hyundai is, this car isn't new. It's been around for a few years, but their efficiency numbers are right up there with like Tesla. Like just insane that Hyundai, not Ford, not
little
GM with old
Hyundai.
GM, just little old Hyundai. So my wife, she drives with a bit of a lead foot. So we bought the car on Friday, and then Saturday morning I left for a week. And my wife, who's never really driven an EV, was left with the car for a week. And she went and she got charged, she did all the things. And then when she picked me up from the airport, and she's like, oh, by the way, can you put me in sport mode real quick? I'm like, all right, because that's how she drives. My wife drives in sport mode and is ready to rock at all times. I looked down at her the efficiency, like the kilowatts per mile, and it was 4.1, which is really good when you think about it. 4.1 for every mile, yeah, which is right again up there with like I think a year ago I think
you mean 4.1 miles per kilowatt hour?
Yes. Sorry, that's what you said. 4.1 miles per kilowatt hour. Sorry about that. Which is right up there with like the Model 3 and the Model Y, which Tesla has been doing. And Tesla, love them, hate them, whatever. Their efficiency numbers are out of this world insane when it comes to how well their vehicles do. So yeah, from Hyundai. So we bought the car. It's front-wheel drive. It's not all-wheel drive, but that's fine because I don't plan on really taking it up to Tahoe for snowboarding. We have other things to do that, and it drives well. It's got 201 horsepower, so it's not super fast, but you still have like 200 and hold on, the torque number is obviously higher because EV torque. 291. Foot-pounds of torque. So, you can stomp on the gas, you get that 0 to 30, 0 to 40 that everyone really likes anyway. That's there. It's a fun little car to drive. It's got plenty of room. That's probably why we bought it. When I reviewed it a long time ago, I really enjoyed it. And I'm surprised that it's taken everyone else this long to sort of catch up to Hyundai. I'm just going to keep saying that when it comes to EVs. I mean, the ID.4 is essentially like, hey, we caught up to Hyundai from a few years ago.
What did you have before?
Well,
did you have an EV before this, Robbie? Or did you replace something? Or
so what happened is that my wife has hurt her ankle. We have a BRZ with a manual transmission.
Ooh.
It's her left ankle. So, shifting gears can be difficult. We also have the free 2004 Jaguar X-Type, which is a 2004 Jaguar. So it is about as dependable.
That's all you need to say. 2004 Jaguar.
It's half Ford. It's half mid 2000s Ford, half mid 2000s Jaguar. It is a Christmas tree of check engine lights. It is, yeah. So it had broken down. Not broken down, but it failed to start on her a few times when she had to go to work and while she was at work. She works in a sort of rough neighborhood at a hospital. She makes, and I told her this when the car wouldn't start one day, I told her that you make entirely too much money to have a car that is unreliable in a neighborhood that you do not need. You shouldn't have a car that's unreliable. So we looked around for some other vehicles. We looked at the ID.4 a bit, but we decided to go with the Hyundai.
Why did the Hyundai win over the ID.4?
I think, she has friends who had Volkswagens, and Volkswagens are either outstanding or not. That's, it's sort of hit or miss with Volkswagen. You either get a great car that has zero problems, or you get a car that's maybe has a few other problems. There are also some issues with the Volkswagen that I think would have infuriated her. I think the infotainment system that's still not been updated and fixed, I think that would make her angry. And then also there's like this sort of weirdness where you have to push a button in order to roll the rear windows down. There's only two little, toggles for windows. And so at its sort of default position, you can roll down the front windows, the left and right front windows. If you want to roll the back windows down, you have to push a button, and then it sets it to back windows, and then you use those same buttons, those same toggles.
Why? Why do they do that?
I think they were trying to be.
You save a switch.
Save a switch.
You saved a switch.
There's also the situation with the side mirrors, where the first time I drove the ID.4, I thought it was broken. I couldn't get the buttons to create. It's the same sort of button situation where you have to sort of push a button until it gets into the right position, and then you can adjust the side mirrors. And I kept pushing the button, the actual knob for the side mirror. I'm like, oh, this doesn't work. I can't adjust the side mirrors. And it turns out I was just... And so there's like these little things that Volkswagen did. They're like, hey, look at us, we're being... And I was just like, that's just going to piss off my wife. So there's a few things. I like the ID.4. I think the ID.4 is a great little car. I think that the infotainment system needs to be fixed as soon as possible, because I think every day that they haven't fixed it, it's bad for that vehicle when there's other vehicles on the market, namely the Kona, the Mach-E, for people who have a little bit more money, the XC40 Recharge. I mean, and of course the Model Y. So they need to sort of get it together when it comes to that. But yeah, that was sort of, and my wife doesn't really like the way Volkswagens look. She was okay with the ID.4, but she liked, I'm like, okay, what about Hyundai? And her last Hyundai was a 1987 Hyundai Excel.
Wow.
She was a little, used car when she was in high school. And again, the 1987 Hyundai Excel is just a trash vehicle. It is just bad. Everything about that vehicle is bad.
They were cheap, though.
They were super cheap. Yeah, it was cheap, like when you buy cheap, buy often sort of. That was exactly where that. And so she had a sort of an issue with Hyundais, even though she had been in a bunch of Hyundais that I had reviewed. And so I sort of talked to her, and I sort of hopefully nothing goes wrong with this car, because I've really talked up Hyundai in the last few weeks. How they've gotten, they're a better automaker than they were.
You just jinxed yourself. You're going to get the one.
I know.
You have the one Hyundai in the entire fleet that is going to be an utter piece of trash, and you have it.
yeah. I got the one broken Hyundai, but they have that good They have the warranty, and so I think it'll be fine. And we also get free maintenance. I'm like, oh great, what am I going to do with that with an EV? I'm like, I guess something. Anyway, yeah. So we drove it, like it. Good little EV if you're a person who's... we leased it, and I wrote an article on a site about why we decided to lease instead of buy. And it really comes down to battery technology and the next generation of EVs that are going to be showing up in the next few years.
Fair enough.
There you go. So that's the three cars I drove.
In fact, the next generation of Hyundais are...
Oh, we try to hold
next
out for the
generation
Ioniq
Hyundai
5.
EVs is just a few months away.
Yeah,
I really try to hold out for the Ioniq 5. I saw it at the Munich Auto Show. And I was like, oh man, this is dope. And but we kind of needed a car now. It's just one of those things where you're just like, well, fine.
Yeah.
Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
Between client meetings, managing your business, and everyday tasks, who has time to worry about website hosting? With Kinsta's managed WordPress hosting, you don't have to. They handle the technical stuff, delivering lightning-fast load times, enterprise-grade security, and 24/7 365 human-only support. Simply switching to Kinsta could make your site up to 200% faster. Kinsta's custom dashboard makes managing sites easy, with powerful features designed to save you time and effort. Plus, their free expert-led migrations ensure a smooth transition. Ready to see why Kinsta is trusted by thousands of businesses? Get your first month free at kinsta.com. That's KINSTA.com. Kinsta, simply better hosting.
Okay. All right. Let's get into some items. Speaking of the Munich Auto Show, the IAA Mobility Show, you were there, and we weren't. So what did you see that was interesting besides the Ioniq 5?
So I saw the Mission R, the Porsche Mission R, which is the Porsche's sort of, they essentially created a sports car EV, and it's a concept, but they were very coy about the idea that sort of like a wink. I'm doing a wink right now. I'm not very good at winking. Sort of winking at the fact that what we're seeing in this vehicle is going to be making its way into possibly a Cayman, and then of course some sort of sports car or race car. I really like the Taycan, and so the idea that Porsche is making now a proper Porsche sports car that is an EV at some point in the future, I'm excited about, because I think the engineering and Porsche, what they've done with the Taycan, they're going to just advance that and make it better for someone who wants a very fast, I guess people would say a proper Porsche. What else was cool? There was the new Volkswagen, the ID.Life, sorry. The ID.Life,
Yeah.
which is their mid to 20,000-ish EV. It's a little, for cruising around the city. It looked great. We're not going to get it in America because we don't like small cars. The end.
Yeah. So
I went over to
America.
shoot. I tried to go over and shoot video of it for my YouTube channel, and unfortunately, there was a line to get into because they had all the COVID protocols. Even though everyone had to be vaccinated to get in, and we all had to wear masks, there was still a limit on how many people could be in the booths. So I got over to the the Volkswagen booth. It was full, so then I just left, and I came back later, and there was a long line of video teams waiting to shoot video. So I looked at it, I got, ooh, this looks cool, and then I left because it's not coming in the United States, and that makes me sad because we didn't get the ID.3, and so there's
How big is it? I mean, is it like roughly the size of the Polo or closer to a Golf?
Closer to a Golf, I think. I think it's smaller because I think the ID.4 is actually bigger than the Golf. ID.3, I'm sorry, is larger than the Golf. It's just chunkier. It's just a chunkier car than the Golf because of battery, etc. And so yeah, the ID.Life is a bit smaller. I also was very excited about the idea of a G-Wagon. The EQG coming. They showed off their near production concept vehicle at the Mercedes booth, and it looked like it just looked like a G-Wagon with a bunch of lights on it. That was essentially what it comes down to. But like we took a G-Wagon, we stuck a battery in it. We ripped out the motor and put 4 EV motors in it, which I'm very excited about. And then we put a ton of lights on it. Where do you think we should put lights? Yeah, let's put some lights.
Lots of LEDs.
Everywhere. Anywhere you
Lots
can put
of
a light,
LEDs. Yeah. Which of course will all disappear when it goes to market. It just looks cool when you're, at the thing. It garnered a lot of interest because G-Wagons and... Hold on. I'm just going to close this door. The dogs are losing their minds. There we go. Sorry about that. Just keep coming in with their toys, barking at each other, jumping on top of things. The G-Wagon it's a G-Wagon. I looked inside. It doesn't have the large hyperscreen setup that we're seeing in the EQS and available in the EQE. It just has sort of the traditional, 2-screen setup. But you can have the hyperscreen and still have that handle, for the passenger right above the glove compartment. So I think maybe that's what they're going for. But four motors, true torque vectoring, because every wheel can do something completely different from anything else. Doesn't rely on a clutch, doesn't rely on any sort of differential, doesn't rely on any of that. It's just 4 different motors, and it'll have a proper low gear. So it'll have a 2-gear setup somehow. I don't know.
A two-range 4-wheel drive system?
Yeah, so you can set, you can shove it down in low and then pull a tree out of the ground or something.
like you do.
Like you do. I think it'll do well, especially in California where the G-Wagon does very well, especially in the LA area. What else was cool?
What did you think of the EQE?
Yeah, it's just a smaller EQS, really. It's just, it's like the E-Class. The E-Class is just like, well, you can't afford the S-Class, but you still want to be fancy. I'll just get the E-Class. And that's the EQE. It is, it is a...
The design of the EQE, even more so than the EQS, it's going to this kind of jelly bean shape. It's kind of just a blob. And I'm not sure if I like it.
They're really going for that. That's sort of the future of Mercedes-Benz design. They told me at the EQS drive, that's sort of what we can expect from Mercedes-Benz. I think it is a little blobbish, but they're also trying to drag coefficient. They want to get those huge numbers because you're buying a Mercedes. If you're buying a Mercedes, you don't want to be the person with a Mercedes with 200 miles of range. You want 350, 400.
Right.
You're looking, you're spending a lot of money on a Mercedes-Benz, so you want to be able to say, well, yeah, I could drive from LA to San Francisco and only stop once or whatever. I'm still a little disappointed that Mercedes is still on the 400 volt system. So I think it's 200 kilowatts, I think is the charge rate. If it was 800, they could go up to 350 and really sort of like really hammer in that luxury and convenience of having a Mercedes. But the EQS is a great car. I drove it in Switzerland. I got around. But yeah, the EQE, I think it's going to be, it's essentially the E-Class. Instead of having the lift gate, the large sort of fastback lift gate, it just has a proper trunk. So if you're into trunks, the EQE is your jam. What else happened? I'm trying to think of I had to shoot a lot of video, so there was one more.
What about the BMW concept? The
circular.
What do you call it?
The iVision Circular.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's interesting. I think it's something that every automaker needs to start thinking about when it comes to recycling, because you can say, oh, this car is 100% recyclable, but you have all these materials that are like weaves and mixtures, and when you do that, now you create a whole other issue, because you have to essentially pull those materials apart in some way in order to recycle them. And what BMW is saying, like, oh, it's all mono materials, so this is just this, whatever the door panel is made out of one material, so it's easier to recycle. I think it's something that automakers should be thinking about, because you can say that your car is has great EV range and it's very green, and you can say that your factories are powered by the rain and rainbows and wind and the sun. But if the actual vehicle itself becomes a bit of a challenge to either to recycle, then you're it's like you're almost there and then you blew it at the end.
This close.
Missed it by that much.
Yes. All right. What else did we have here? Speaking of EVs and long range, Lucid. I think by the time this show's out, it should actually be official tomorrow. But the Lucid Air is going to have the maximum range version, which I think is not the Dream Edition, but the Grand Touring. Is going to have an official EPA range of 520 miles, by far and away the longest of anything on there out on the road. And these are going to be going into full production in the next couple of months, is the plan. This thing has a 118 kilowatt hour battery pack, which they're apparently using 113 kilowatt hours. So it's a bigger pack than anything. The biggest Teslas have a 100 kilowatt hour pack. And you've sat in the Lucid Air, Robbie. I sat in one several years ago when they first unveiled it. This 520 miles is a really impressive number for the driving range, and it's also very efficient. I don't have the numbers right at hand for the efficiency, but it actually works out to be about 17% more energy efficient than the most efficient Model S, which is, you were talking earlier about Tesla having better efficiency than anybody else. This thing takes it, raises the bar even more, which is going to be interesting, comparing against cars like the EQE and the EQS, but also, stuff that's coming from GM. The Hummer is, that thing is going to have a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack and is going to have somewhere between 300 and 350 miles of range.
And weigh
this has
approximately
got
the same amount as a Sherman tank, but also, yes.
Yes, yeah. Or maybe slightly more, I think, than the tank.
Slightly more, possibly.
Yeah. But the Lucid, 520 miles from 118 or 113 kilowatt hours is a really impressive number. So hopefully we'll get a chance to drive these sometime in the next few months and see what it's really like and see what kind of range it actually gets in the real world. But with that, if you can get 500 miles, I mean, you're talking, you can easily go LA to San Francisco without stopping
and beyond.
And I think Motor Trend actually Yeah, Motor Trend actually did that. They actually did they got an exclusive first drive in the Air. They did some kind of program with Lucid, and I think they went with one of the versions of the Air. They went like well over 460 miles. So it's not too shabby.
I was part of that. It was I think it was Motor Trend, Bloomberg, and Car and Driver. This is when I was at Car and Driver, and it was a ride along. And in my ride along, we got 458 miles from the prototype vehicle, and so which meant I was sitting in a car in the back seat of a car.
Oh my God!
And with a mask on, and they put up a like a plexiglass screen because it was last year. It was last August, so it was right in the middle of COVID. And they're like, "Do you want to do this?" And I'm like. And I was like, well, what are we going to, and COVID restrictions.
If I have to.
And it was, 458 miles. And at that time, they were targeting 517. So the fact that they're getting 520 is great. And, they are, the Lucid team is essentially, it's almost all former Tesla employees. It's all people who know how to make an efficient, it's the, the head engineer is Peter Rawlinson. He was the guy who created the Model S essentially, and so now he's the CEO of Lucid, and he has all these engineers over there. And I've gone and I've talked to them, and they are very much like, well, we're not really. We want to have the most efficient vehicle on the road, and they strive to really get an efficient vehicle. Like their motor is like really tiny and efficient, and everything they're doing over there is sort of, it's very impressive. They were the battery people before they for was it Formula E as a different name. I forget what the name is. But Ativa, yeah. So it's so they have the sort of the battery technology. They have years and years of battery technology under their belt. You have a bunch of former Tesla employees over there, Tesla engineers who are more than happy to sort of destroy Tesla's lead as the king of range. And I'm sure once Elon sees this news, he is not going to be happy about the idea that he is being bested by his former employees, and so it starts a bit of a range war, which is good for everyone. It's good for us because
it's good for us, right?
A 520 mile vehicle, a 520 mile range vehicle means that everyone is now on notice. You have to really bring it. You need to be better at your, you need better efficiency from your motors. You need better efficiency from your battery pack. You really have to make a vehicle that at least gets close to that, and then that trickles down to the cars that the rest of us can drive. But I did sit in the back.
Yeah, well, the important.
Oh, I sat. The car I drove in was like, it was sort of, it was a beta test car. It was a mule. But I have sat in the back of a near production vehicle with like most of the fanciness that the Lucid Air, and it's very comfortable. It's a very fancy. It's very nice inside.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say was the important thing about these efficiency gains that they're getting. This is a pretty good sized car, and if you can get that kind of efficiency out of such a large car with a pretty large battery pack, if you can then take that and translate that into something that is more mainstream, and take that battery, take half of that battery pack size, take 100, take 60 kilowatt hours. Now you can have really good range, and because if you cut that battery in half, you've taken a significant amount of weight out of the car, so that adds to that builds on the efficiency even more. So you can start to get much more affordable cars that still have close to 300 miles of range, and in that 250 to 300 mile range area, if you can get that, I mean, that's realistically that's good enough for pretty much everybody. Very few people really need more range than that. So I think this is a good sign. Hopefully we'll see this technology trickling down into more affordable vehicles over the next few years.
Yeah, if you cut it in half, but the car's going to be smaller, the battery pack's going to be smaller, so you're losing all this weight. You're talking like it's 270 if you cut it in half, but then you take into account all the weight savings that you're getting. You're talking about 320, probably, from a smaller car that's
easily.
not fancy.
Which is impressive. I know, and no one needs the range. For the most part, none of us need those huge range numbers anyway. It's for the odd road trip. Most of the time we'd be fine with far less. So.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
Yep.
We don't really go anywhere.
We don't really need. I mean, how many people are driving? What did you say? 40 or 58 miles in a day? Not most of us.
I'm driving 400. Yeah, that's a long. Again, 458 miles.
That's a long day if that's your average day.
It was a long day, and they're like, "You sure you want to?" You're like, "You're cool with this?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're cool." So we did this long, huge loop, and we stopped, and I talked to the CEO, and then we just did this other long loop until the evening, and then I was done, and then I was very tired, and I went home.
And you're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Speaking of new EV manufacturers, there's another one that has actually just today, as we're recording, rolled their first regular customer production vehicle off their assembly line, and that's Rivian. We've been hearing about Rivian for a few years now. They finally are ready to put their vehicle in production. Theirs is not quite as efficient as the Lucid. I think, let's see, what was it? It was theirs. They have a pickup truck. It's a mid-size pickup truck, so it's closer in size to like a Ford Ranger or a Chevy Colorado than to an F-150 or Silverado. It gets 314 miles of range from a 135 kilowatt hour battery pack. But it's also not quite as aerodynamic as a Lucid Air. It's a pickup truck. It's a big blocky truck. So this is what you should expect from something like that. But the launch edition Rivian R1Ts will be going to customers probably in the next week or two. The first ones will be delivered. But one thing those customers won't get is the tank turn feature that we saw in some of Rivian's videos that they put out last year. Robbie, you were mentioning that the G-Wagon has four motors on there, one for each wheel. Rivian is doing the same thing. They've got a 4-motor setup. And you can control them all independently. And Rivian put out a video from their testing. It was either earlier this year or last year, showing what they call tank turn. Because with actual tanks, because they're on tracks, you can run the tracks in opposite directions and literally turn on its own axis. And you can do the same thing with the Rivian R1T. You can run the wheels on one side forward and run the wheels on the other side in reverse and turn 360 degrees on its own axis. But that feature is not going to be available at launch, and it's possible it may not ever actually make it into production. And Rivian explained to Motor Trend that the reason why is it turns out to actually be a lot harder to do safely than you might think. If you're on level ground, with a uniform surface, it's pretty straightforward. You just put the wheels on one side going forward, the wheels on the other side in reverse, and no problem. But if you're on any kind of slope or there's any difference in the surface that they're on, things can get hairy really fast. Like if you're on a little bit of an angle. And you've got, suddenly one wheel catches more grip than the other three wheels, the whole thing can just shoot off in some random direction.
God, that would be awful.
That would not be good. So it turns out to be a really, really hard control problem.
I would love to have seen the testing for this in which they discovered that it was harder to do this than they thought. Like somewhere there's got to be random videos of a Rivian very nicely doing the turn, like go the wrong direction.
You know what's funny is that they showed that in a video, and I was talking to them. They're like, "Yeah, we didn't. It was just like a thing we did, and we didn't realize people would be excited about it." And they didn't seem very excited about the idea of like giving it to customers. I think it was just one of like, "Hey, look what we can do," not realizing the customers are like, "Well, look what it can do." this should be the thing that I should be able to do
This
when I
is the
get my Rivian.
feature that is going to make me buy this vehicle. Oops.
I'm never going to use this, but I could at some point. And yeah, I think it was one of those things where not understanding that when people see something, they automatically want the thing.
They want it, even if they'll never use it, never need it.
Never use it, and I think I don't think it's ever gonna. And I don't think it's ever going to come to fruition, or it's going to be on like some special edition, or I don't know. It seems, again, it's cool to see, but like, Sam said, it seems very dangerous.
That's really cool. It could kill us all, but let's go with it.
Maybe don't do that.
Well, we've got lots of other things that can kill us, on the road. So
that's true.
Why not?
Yeah.
Just add that to the list.
Just add it to the growing list of things you should be
of deadly features on our cars.
Deadly features on our cars.
If you get big 5,000 pound sedans that go from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, I think that's just as
not
dangerous.
At all. That's totally fine.
It's
totally
fine.
cool.
Just a giant rocket.
Fine.
Essentially a comet.
But you're good. Yeah. You've got a seatbelt.
A comet.
You got an airbag.
Everyone's showing off their comet.
Their comet. Show off your
What could
comet.
possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong with that? I guess every time we've ever seen the end of a Cars and Coffee, we can see what goes wrong.
Exactly. With every Mustang,
every time you see a Mustang coming out of a Cars and Coffee lot.
And then slamming into something.
Okay. Finally, last item I've got before we had some listener questions is GM. Well, actually, GM didn't actually announce this. There's a lidar company that's based in San Jose called Cepton. And I first met these guys at CES, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And they've got a kind of an interesting lidar sensor, the way they do their beam steering system. They've got something they call micromotion technology. Basically, they're using something like a speaker driver to vibrate the steering mechanism to steer the laser beam to scan across the field of view. Well, anyway, earlier this week, Cepton filed their S4 form with the SEC, which is the form that you got to file if you're going to do a merger with a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company, which, we've had all kinds of privately held, startups that have gone public through mergers with these SPACs over the last year and a half. The latest is Cepton. They're planning to go public at a valuation of about $1.5 billion. But one of the little details that was buried in the middle of this 150-odd page filing with the SEC was they acknowledged that they have their first production program with General Motors. Now, I talk to Cepton from time to time, and they actually told me several months ago that they had a production design win with a top 5 global automaker, but they wouldn't say who it was. I had my suspicions that it was probably GM for Ultra Cruise, but they've now confirmed that it will be coming in 2023 as part of the GM Ultra Cruise system, which is the next generation beyond Super Cruise. So we don't know exactly what functionality it's going to have. Mark Royce, the head of product development at GM, has said that it'll have the ability to do some automated driving capability on city streets. Again, we don't know exactly under what conditions, or where it'll be able to do that, but it's coming in 2023, and it will have a lidar sensor built in there from Cepton. So that was kind of cool.
Cepton. It sounds like the future.
Yeah.
It does sound sort of future.
Exactly.
Cepton.
So we've got a bunch of listener questions that came into the email. So in addition to our Twitter, you can also send us you can send us questions by email at feedback at wheelbearings.media. And I went through the inbox today and caught some emails that had come in over the last couple of weeks that I hadn't been paying attention to, unfortunately. So going to start off with the first one from Michael R. Burns, and this is actually kind of a long email, and there's a bunch of questions in here, so I'm going to throw them at you a bit at a time. So here are Michael's questions, starting with the Volvo XC40 Recharge test drive, which you referenced earlier, Robbie. The vegan interior, does it feel just like the VW Leatherette, or is it more like the waterproof outdoorsy interior of a Subaru? Did you feel like you were getting less for your money than a traditional cloth or leather interior?
It does not feel cheap. It feels nice. It does not feel leatherette. It doesn't have that weird plasticky leatherette feel that you sometimes get, where you're like, well, why did you even get this? Why did you even give me this? So, it feels very nice. It feels, the issue with, it's not an issue. What Volvo wants is their cars are a bit more expensive. I mean, than the other EVs, and it's a premium luxury vehicle, and that's what they're selling. And so they want to make sure that when you get inside that vehicle, you feel like you're in a premium luxury vehicle. So no, it doesn't feel cheap at all. I don't feel like I was getting. If I were to buy it, I wouldn't feel like I was getting scammed by the word vegan interior.
Okay. Yeah, and there's other vehicles, increasing number of vehicles now that have vegan interiors. They're non-leather interiors. I think the Mustang Mach-E, they call their material Active X, which I think is all. It also doesn't have a plasticky feel to it. It's not like a real supple Napa leather or some really high-end leather like you'd find in a Bentley or Mercedes, but it feels nice. It's a nice feeling material. It's fairly soft and supple. So I think a lot of these modern materials that they're coming up with are quite interesting.
Yeah, a lot of other companies they partner with other companies to get these nice materials in the car. So it's not just like Volvo figuring it out. They partner with a company that's their sole job is to make high end materials out of just random crap that we throw away.
Okay. Next, Michael also had a question about the Android automotive experience. Did you have any issues with latency versus other touchscreen infotainment systems? Any crashes, any lockups? And actually, Nicole, you could also touch on this because the Polestar also has the Android automotive infotainment system. It's on a bigger screen than what's in the XC40, but it's basically the same system. So did either of you notice any issues with latency or other issues with it?
I didn't experience any issues, and in fact, it was really quick. I thought that the response was really good, and just using the touchscreen, pinching and zooming, okay, I want to see. We actually got turned around in a little mountain area, and it was trying let's wait a minute, where are we? Let's open this up a little bit wider and see where we are. And it was very responsive, even just trying to move it around to find out where we were in relation to where we were going. I didn't have any issues with it crashing or any lockups or anything like that. It was a pretty seamless experience, so I was pleased with it. I didn't have any issues. Robbie?
I had zero issues with it. I think a lot of it comes down to Google and Volvo worked really hard to make this work really well. It's the first Android automotive vehicle. It is a lot. There's a lot of Google. A lot of Google in there. Where some automakers are going to try to sort of hide Android automotive. Volvo and Google decided kind of put it up front. You can say, hey. The word. I've gotten in trouble for saying hey, and then the wake word on podcasts and on videos before, so I'm not going to say it, but you know what it is. Hey, G company.
Hey, Guillermo.
Hey, Guillermo.
Hey, Guillermo.
And I didn't have any issues. It was quick. I do wish that there were more apps in the Google Play Store, especially when it comes to EVs. I think the only thing that was in there was ChargePoint. EA wasn't in there at the time, Electrify America. They might be in there now, I'm not sure, because I know that they recently started making it available on Android Auto and on CarPlay, so it might be available now in Android Automotive. I'm not sure, but the ability to sort of download apps was pretty great, but I wish that there were more there are more than music and media apps. That's essentially what sort of fills up that a lot of Stitcher and NPR and just anything that's music or podcast related. They're all in there.
Yeah, I think we will be seeing more apps coming to the store. Obviously, a lot of the things like games and so on that you get on your mobile devices are not necessarily suitable for running, on the vehicle screen. But I think we will see more stuff coming over the next year or so, especially as more OEMs start launching their Android Automotive systems. GM is bringing their first ones out. In fact, just last week, I think Chevy revealed details of the 2022 Silverado refresh, and it's going to be getting an Android Automotive-based infotainment system, along with the 2022 Sierra, GMC Sierra, and the new EVs, starting with the Hummer and the Lyriq. They're all getting this system. So I think as more vehicles have this platform in there, you're going to see more developers making their apps available to download through the Google Play Store on those vehicles. Let's see. If you're using Android Auto or in the future Apple CarPlay, does it take over the whole screen or only a portion of it? Example, will it be like CarPlay in his 2018 Ram 1500 quad cab, where the screen is occupied by the projection and a toggle between phone or app menu and the major categories like radio and climate, etc. So does it take up the whole screen? Or I think it only uses half the screen, like it does with the current Volvo Sensus system, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's not available yet still. CarPlay is still not, it's still coming. I talked to Volvo about this. I asked about what's the deal with CarPlay, and they said it is coming. There will be an update coming. But I assumed it's going to, because CarPlay is really built around a landscape orientated screen, and in the Volvo it is a portrait screen. So I'm sure there's going to be, your CarPlay or your Android Auto, which I'm not even sure why you would use Android Auto at this point in this vehicle, because everything you kind of want is there really. But you will, I don't think Android or CarPlay is going to work well as a portrait mode. So you'll get that landscape CarPlay, and then underneath it or below or above it, we'll have access to other items that are in the infotainment system, like Sensus before.
Yeah. What about the dog friendliness of the cargo area? Did the dog we hear in the show get a ride in the Recharge? I think that was Bowie, if I'm not mistaken. If so, what size and breed is he? And did he fit comfortably in that cargo area, or did the sloped window cut down too much on the height? Michael has a Greyhound, and a compact SUV like the Jeep Cherokee makes him hunker over like he's Gargamel in a Smurf convenience store.
It's a great description.
It is a great description. I actually, because a lot of the automakers ask me not to put my animals in the car. So Bowie is a German Shepherd. He's a big dog. He's like 100 pounds of goofiness, who looks terrifying to anyone who comes near our house, but is actually quite nice. The dog friendliness of the cargo area, trying to think if he would fit back there. I'm sure he would. I mean, being back towards the very back would probably make him hunch over. Typically, what we do in our Kona is we just leave the back seat up. We don't put it down, and then the dogs just sit in the back seat because you get a little bit more height. And I think it's probably about the same sort of situation. The compact SUVs, when it comes to dog, if you have a large dog and you try to put the seats down, and so now you're losing some headroom, I guess you would, dog room. It would probably fit, but I think for a Greyhound, you're probably going to end up more likely having it with the seat up like we do with Bowie. Nico, our other dog, who's essentially like a miniature German Shepherd, she would fit fine. She's about 40% of Bowie's size.
Okay. Next, Michael's next batch of questions here go off in a completely different direction regarding EV regulations and tax benefits. There was a story this past week about how the U.S. gets it wrong with doing tax credits versus direct discounts. European countries give the break at the time of purchase, which seems to be helping with EV adoption. What legislation at the federal level is underway to push the EV tax credit to the moment of purchase rather than April 15th the next year? Are any manufacturers looking at enticing buyers with a discount on the car if you agree to forward the tax credit in the next year to the dealership? There had been some proposals to transform the EV incentives from a tax credit situation to a point of sale rebate. But so far, nothing like that has been introduced in Congress. Congress would have to make that change. And what they have introduced, earlier this week, there was a bill introduced or actually it was last week, to change the EV incentive system, which had a number of changes that included also providing additional incentives for U.S.-built EVs and for even more for EVs built in UAW plants. And Honda and Toyota are very upset about that. But we'll see whether or not EVs, that actually gets passed. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. In fact, Honda is going to be getting its first two EVs from GM, at least one of which will be built in a UAW plant, so that vehicle will be eligible. But the other thing that they did change is the current tax credits. It's not a fully refundable tax credit, so it's $7,500. But if your tax bill is only, say, $4,000, then all you're going to get is the $4,000. You can only get a credit for up to whatever your tax bill is.
You can't make money.
Right. So one of the things in this bill is it would be a fully refundable credit. So regardless of how much your tax bill is, you would get the full amount of the incentive back. So, potentially if they pass the whole thing with the UAW, with the union-built, American-built vehicles, and you bought, an F-150 built in Dearborn, or a Hummer built in Detroit, you would potentially get up to $12,500 back, and you would get that back in full. There is also an income limit tied with that. So, if you make over a certain income, then that would be phased out. You would not get that amount, which I personally think is a good thing. But right now, there's unfortunately no moves in the U.S. to switch that to a point of sale rebate, which I think would actually be an even bigger benefit to people, because most consumers, when they go looking for a car, part of their purchase decision is, what is my monthly payment going to be? Because people have a budget that they can work with. They know they can spend $300 a month or $400 a month or $200 a month on their car payment. And if you're looking at a $40,000 vehicle, and you're going to get $7,500 back next year, you've got to finance, say you put $5,000 on it, you got to finance $35,000, and that's what your monthly payment's going to be based on, not $32,000 dollars. Yeah. So it's it would be better for people if they could do that. It would also be, I think, a lot harder to administer a system like that. But this is one of the reasons why a lot of people lease their EVs rather than buy.
Ding, ding, ding.
Because, you mentioned, Michael mentions, our manufacturers looking at enticing buyers with the discount if they agree to forward the tax credit. You can't really do that, but if you lease, you are technically doing that, because when you lease, it's actually whoever is financing the lease, whether it's GM Financial or Ford Credit or whatever bank is actually handling the lease, they technically are the purchaser of the vehicle. They get the tax credit, and then that gets factored into your lease payment. So that's why when you look at leasing an EV, the payments are often so much less than they are if you're buying and taking out a loan to buy the car, because that that tax credit is built into the lease payment. So if that's probably the best way to go right now.
Yeah, when we that was another reason why we leased, is because you look at it and you're like, okay, this is how much the car is, and now we're going to add like your $7,500 and then the $1,500 for California, and then there's some other credit that I don't, so now your car is only cost this much, and now we're gonna set the lease up based on your 3 years and however many miles, etc., that you want to pay on this lease for this vehicle. So you kind of get the money off the bat with the lease, but of course in 3 years, I don't have anything to show for it. I don't have a car anymore. But at the same time, I mean, at the end of the day, when you get rid of the car, you don't have anything to show for it. And at that point, so
one way or the other, you will have nothing.
One
to
way
show
or
for
the
it
other. So yeah, so we're saving money monthly. We have an EV. Any battery degradation isn't our problem after 3 years. And then as battery technology progresses, we'll be able to say, hey, 258 miles from this 68 kilowatt hour battery. Well, now they can get it from a 30 kilowatt hour battery, and now that these cars are far more efficient, and they're far more you get either more miles, or you get a lighter car, which includes more miles. So yeah, and then of course the big thing is that eventually the ID Buzz will be available in America, and we'll see how that works out for us.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't want a sweet microbus EV?
Exactly. All right. Larry Bailey asks, I'm one of the many that pre-ordered a Ford Maverick hybrid, but what I'm seeing now online is Ford is only building Mavericks with the 2-liter EcoBoost engine. Have you heard anything about this? So yeah, there were some reports online that Ford was building only the 2-liter Mavericks. Mike Levine, who's the head of Ford Product Communications, responded to that on Twitter a few days ago and said, no, they are building hybrids. I think what we'll probably see, what is typical for any new product launch, anytime a manufacturer launches a new vehicle, is they always front load it with the more premium models, because those are the customers that are often more most willing to buy, most enthusiastic to buy right away, and so they want to get the maximum profit margins on those vehicles up front. But they also do build the base models and the lower trim levels. They just don't build as many of them. But Mike said that they are building hybrids right now, and they will be available from day one when the Maverick goes on sale. I think sometime in October. So they are coming. Part of the problem, I think, right now as well, is that the hybrids might also be more impacted by the chip shortage, because with the electric system in there, it's going to have more controls. So there might be some impact there, which might limit some of the availability. But they are building them at least as much as they can. Okay, Dave Marsh asks, and he said, 2 thoughts came to mind from a recent podcast. One was regarding towing. One thing to keep in mind is that the EU market has more liberal tow ratings than the US. My experience has been that vehicles here with low or no tow ratings are rated to pull moderate loads over there. Example, my Mazda 5 has no tow rating here, but is rated for 1,500 pounds in Europe. So let's address that one first. Any thoughts on why some of the vehicles that don't have tow ratings here do have them in Europe?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I'm curious if you guys have an answer.
I don't know what the answer is, but I like to tell the story about the time before last I was in Germany, and there was a Subaru Legacy wagon towing a horse trailer.
Yep.
Actually, earlier today, I saw somebody posted a video, I think it was from TikTok. I put it in our Slack. I don't know if you guys saw it, of they were driving along and they saw a camper, a trailer, being towed behind a Ford Expedition, which itself was being towed behind an old Buick LeSabre. And between the LeSabre and the Expedition was not a tow bar, but a tow strap. and the Buick was like packed full of stuff. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh!
Wait! Was there someone in the
it's
Ford?
amazing.
Was there someone driving the Ford?
No.
Because at some point they have to slow down.
You would think.
Someone has to be in that Ford?
Maybe there was somebody in the Ford. I'm not sure. I couldn't see. But people will do strange things sometimes, very unsafe things sometimes with towing. We do not recommend that.
No, yeah.
We recommend that you follow the manufacturer's directions, and if your vehicle is not rated for towing, please don't tow. I have had a vehicle in the past that was not rated for towing, but I had a tow hitch on it, but only to use for a bike rack, for a hitch-mounted bike rack. So I think part of the problem is here in the U.S. There's greater concerns with product liability, with lawsuits, and so I think when it comes to things like towing, especially with certain types of vehicles, manufacturers tend to be a little more conservative with the tow ratings. There's also the business side of it. They would prefer that if you want to tow, that you buy something that's a little bigger and a little more expensive, and maybe better suited for towing. So, instead of buying a small car or a minivan to tow your little pop-up trailer, they would prefer that you buy a bigger SUV or a pickup truck to do it. So I think those are a couple of different factors that play in there.
Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, in Germany, you see a lot of small cars towing a lot of stuff, and you're just like, all right.
Yeah.
You do see cars that are very small towing things that you would never see them. Cars that would not even remotely be considering towing in the U.S.
Yeah, in Europe, they're like, whatever, we got this. What is that, a boat?
We're good.
I saw someone towing a boat with something. Oh, what was it? Something small. Was it a Golf? I think so.
Towing a boat?
A boat, like a proper boat, not like a little tiny boat, but like a boat. And I was just like, "What is happening on this continent?" But they were like, "Yeah, that's fine."
What's happening on this continent? What is happening on this continent?
Well, the other thing that helps, at least until relatively recently, diesel engines were a lot more popular there. So, those engines, are a lot better suited for towing.
All that torque,
especially, in Germany, diesels are great for towing, and they were never as popular here. With small gas engines, you definitely a lot of times don't really want to be towing. And then the other thing that Dave Marsh asked was about our comments about EV range efficiency, which we talked about earlier. It strikes me that the cast applied the experience and reasoning from internal combustion efficiency curves to EV drivetrains. As you know, ICE engines are tuned for cruising operation loads. Not full beans. At full beans, the ICE sacrifices efficiency for power. Example, they run rich at full output, not to mention all the friction and rotational losses that build at higher RPM. The electric motor tends to hit peak efficiency at full load and higher rotation speeds. I get that high current flow makes more heat in the electronics, but does pedal behavior, especially considering regen benefits, make that big a difference in overall efficiency? If so, what are the big drivers here? So, yes, actually, your behavior does have a huge impact on efficiency. It may be a little bit less than what it is for a lot of internal combustion engines, but it does putting a lot more load on an electric powertrain does make a big difference in your efficiency. If you're lead footing it all the time, you will see your range drop off a lot. You get heat building up, but you also get more friction from tires, more aerodynamic drag, and motors may have their peak efficiency not at zero speed, but it's also usually not at full load either. It's usually somewhere in between. The peak efficiency of most motors is probably somewhere in the 50 to 60% load range. And lower rotational speeds. If you look at the efficiency curves for an electric motor, it usually will start to drop off as you get up to higher and higher speeds. And those motors are also pulling through a gearbox. It's a simple reduction gearbox. It's not as complex a transmission as you have with an engine, but you're going to get losses through that as well. And the faster that's running, those gears are running through lubricant. That's also going to put more, create more friction. So yeah, there is definitely a drop off in efficiency if you drive an EV more aggressively. Jim Manhart asks. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that whenever I have an EV in for review, and then I go and I drive a gas car, a gas-powered ICE, I'm always a little irritated that every time I take my foot off the accelerator, I'm not like building, and I'm not like
not getting
somehow, regen. Yeah, I'm not somehow creating more gasoline to put back into the engine. I'm like, well, this is just inefficient. What's going on here?
I'm just losing gas. I'm braking. I'm getting nothing.
I'm just wasting gas. I'm not getting anything.
This is a waste. Why am I even?
All
braking?
I'm doing is heating up the air around my brakes.
Exactly. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. So actually, regen. I didn't mention regen, but regen does have a big impact, and the more regen your vehicle and EV is set up for, that will help to restore some of that efficiency. So you do get a lot back from strong regen systems. So, if you've got an EV that's got, lets you select one pedal driving mode, use it. Take advantage of it. You'll benefit in terms of range. Jim Manhart actually has more of a comment than a question. In a recent podcast, he says, I referred to the BMW grille as kidneys. I don't think you can use kidney to describe them anymore. That's the traditional descriptor for the BMW grille design is the twin kidneys. I don't think you can use kidney to describe them anymore. I think we have to switch to calling them beaver teeth.
I keep saying they look like beaver teeth on the new ones. I've said that. They look like little buck teeth.
They're very, very large.
Big buck teeth.
They're pronounced. Yes.
They're
the
rather
iX,
pronounced.
They're very, very large. I can say that. I can say that the iX is very large.
Yes, because we can see that. We can all see it.
We can all see the very large teeth.
We all see it.
Exceptionally large beaver teeth.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a couple of other ones, quick ones that came in on Twitter. Coach Cabrera asks, I own a 1984 Nissan 300Z, not a turbo. Where is the best place to look to find the Blue Book value? Most appraisal sites don't go back that far. Yeah, I think like Edmunds and KBB only go back to about 1990. I don't know. Do you guys know where you can find? You
can look on Bring a Trailer, and if that car has been sold or multiple versions of that vehicle have been sold, you can sort of track like what they're selling at. Now of course, Bring a Trailer is usually, the car is in good shape. It's good condition or excellent condition. That's sort of the whole deal with Bring a Trailer. But 1984, I think the prices on that probably are going to keep rising because the Radwood phenomenon. Everyone, all the Gen X, all of us we're getting old, and now we all want to buy the old cars that we had when we were kids. So we're ready to throw down some of our hard-earned cash and bust into our 401ks to buy a 1990 Honda Civic DX.
Okay, where you can find some good values on old cars? Not Redbook, the magazine Redbook, but Redbook. There's a Redbook that's a car valuation site that does car values. The town clerks used to use them years ago when they were trying to figure out how much back in the days before you had a computer that would tell you exactly how much your car was worth to determine how much to charge you when you register your car in certain towns. And Redbook has values. Redbook values, as I remember, and I haven't looked it up online. You might have to do some Google foo, but they give values back very, very far for cars to give you an idea of what cars are worth. So there you go.
Okay. Oh, what I just remembered as well? Haggerty has a valuation tool on their website.
And they're all about old cars.
If you Google Haggerty valuation tool. So for something like the Z and 84Z, that would probably be a good place to look that one up, is on Haggerty. And then one more from Adam Miller says, why is it that some states like Indiana charge an extra fee to license hybrid and electric vehicles while the federal government is giving tax breaks on them? Well, this is pretty straightforward, and I think you're going to see this in a lot more states. States rely heavily on fuel taxes to pay for road construction. Since hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles use either less or no fuel, but they still put wear and tear on the roads. They're looking at owners of those vehicles to pay their fair share towards the cost of upkeep of the roads. And, certainly, we have challenges in this country with infrastructure and paying for road infrastructure. So that fee is taking the place of what you would have otherwise probably paid in gas taxes if you were driving a standard internal combustion engine vehicle.
Yeah, and they can't even go against they can't use the EA chargers and all that, because 80% of people charge at home, so how would they even track that? They're like, well, his PG&E bill went up 12%, so what's 3% of 12%?
Tack on something for that. How do you figure that back?
Yeah, I mean, unless everybody was required to have a separate meter, hooked up to their EV chargers, and you did the same thing, on public chargers, it would be really hard to do. So that's why they're doing these new fees. Yeah, I mean, the other option that some states are looking at, is just a vehicle miles traveled tax, and moving away from the fuel taxes entirely, and you just however many miles a year you drive, times some factor for the weight of the vehicle, because the weight of the vehicle has an impact on how much wear and tear there is on the roads. That's how much you owe in your road tax every year.
Sorry, EV Hummer owners. That thing is just going to tear up roads. This is like every road it drives on just going to have ruts. It's going to have ruts in it.
All the way down.
What happened? Someone up the street bought a Hummer EV.
Okay. That's it for the questions. I did have a chance last week to talk with James Kuffner, who is the CEO of Woven Planet Holdings, which is a subsidiary of Toyota that is responsible for a lot of their future mobility development, autonomous driving, connected vehicles, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to tack that interview on the end here of the show. But before we get to that, I'll say goodbye. See you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Fine people of the roads. Try to get the Greyhounds.
Here's the interview with. Here's the interview with James Kuffner. Talk to you next time. Hey everybody, it's Sam. Today I've got a special interview that I did with James Kuffner, the CEO of Woven Planet. For those of you that aren't familiar with Woven Planet, it is a subsidiary of Toyota, and they're doing a lot of really interesting things for the parent company. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the interview. Oh, one last thing. You will frequently hear James refer to the president in his comments. He's referring to Akio Toyoda, the president of Toyota Motor Corporation. And that's sort of the way that people are, top executives are referred to in Japanese business culture. So enjoy the interview. James, first, let's start off with Woven Planet. For the people who are listening to this podcast, they probably don't know what Woven Planet is. So, can you start out explain kind of the overall philosophy and the strategy of Woven Planet, as a subsidiary of Toyota?
Yeah, well, the goal of Woven Planet is really to be a bridge between the research and the mass production. And that was the original mission of the company when we founded it as an advanced development company between the Toyota Research Institute and Toyota Motor Corporation. And since then, we've evolved. We've taken on more projects. The Woven City was announced. We've announced our software platform, and our old corporate structure wasn't sufficient. And so we ended up relaunching the company as the Woven Planet Group in January. And what I see our role is trying to become the center of excellence for software development to complement the tradition of excellent hardware and electromechanical systems that Toyota Motor Corporation is famous for with the Toyota Production System. So being able to mass produce very reliable, high quality electromechanical components at scale, at low cost, is something that Toyota has been building its business on. But the reality is that today's mobility requires millions of lines of code, an exponentially increasing complexity of features and software. And that's why new tools are needed, and we need to gather really excellent engineers who are skilled at software architecture and development to make the best products. So we've embarked on this big mission to gather those people at Woven Planet and to help the company establish a full model change, as the president likes to call it, from a car company to a mobility company. So exploring all kinds of new mobility. The new technology is opening up so many new possibilities in the space, whether it's connected technologies, automated driving, electrification, and sharing. So all of these things together is what Woven Planet is trying to do, with a particular emphasis on gathering some of the best software engineers in the world to work together to make great products. And some people have been confused at Toyota. You know, we have this mission about software first. And what that means is that you design the software and logical architectures before you design and pick the hardware components. Whereas the previous way of building cars, you choose all these hardware components and then you do 4 years of system integration and testing. But that doesn't scale well when you've got such complexity on the software side. And so putting in abstraction layers, designing a very good logical software architecture in advance of choosing the hardware components is the software first approach, or software defined architectures approach, that have revolutionized personal computers and smartphones. And we're trying to do that here for automotive. But some of the Toyota engineers have come to me and said, "Oh, I'm just a hardware guy, I don't matter anymore." And I said, no, that isn't at all what we're saying. What we're saying is that we need both good hardware and good software together to make good products for our customers. But as a philosophy or an engineering strategy, we design the architectures first and then we integrate. So we absolutely need and continue to rely on Toyota's strength in electromechanical hardware manufacturing. It's just that now we can have software developed in parallel, we can have more features, better quality for our customers, and we can ship new features to our customers even after they purchase the vehicle with wireless over-the-air updates. So it's a big change. We're really excited. There's still a lot to learn, but I'm pretty happy with what we've been able to accomplish this year so far.
Yeah, and that is a fascinating turnabout, you know, in working from the software first. And certainly for the engineers, you know, I don't think they have anything to worry about, because you could have billions of lines of code, but if you don't have actuators and sensors and compute platforms and an electrical architecture to make it all do something, it's meaningless. So exactly.
We could make a simulation, but at the end of the day, it's got to move people and goods when the rubber hits the road. So absolutely.
So there's, as I understand, there's three main components to Woven Planet Holdings. You've got Core, Alpha, and Capital. And could you give a little description of what each of those is and how they fit into that overall philosophy?
Yeah. So when just going back a little bit, we had a pretty clear focus when we started TRIED in 2018. It was a joint venture between Denso, Aishin, and Toyota, and we were to deliver automated driving IP, software technology, and systems to Toyota. We launched our Teammate product on the Lexus LS this year and the next generation Mirai, the Toyota Teammate. And that was great, but what we learned during that process was that we had a lot of tools that needed to be improved. So we also started building our ARENE software platform, our automated mapping platform, and these new initiatives. And then Woven City was announced, and Woven Planet took a role in helping manage and lead that project. So we had a lot more on our plate. And one of the things, I spent 20 years in Silicon Valley, and one of the things that I've learned is that if you've got a startup, it's very good to have focus, but if you take on too much, you may be distracted. You may not be able to deliver everything. So I wanted to create agile teams that had very clear focus, but we also wanted to do more in parallel and grow our company. So taking a playbook from Google, if you remember, I used to work there, and when I was there, the company reorganized itself, where its core business of search and ads was branded as Google, but then they created a holding company on top, Alphabet, and they had Google X, now known as Alphabet X, which incubated a lot of new products and ideas, spin-offs like Waymo and Verily and so on. And then you also had an investment arm. It was Google Ventures back then, now capital G, that does partnerships and investments. So basically, that recipe is what we did for TRID. I took our core business, the old structure of TRID, which became Woven Core. We created a holding company, Woven Planet Holdings, on top. I have Woven Alpha, which is our new projects initiatives, like our platform, automated mapping platform, and software platform. And I have an investment arm, Woven Capital, that has announced some new investments, and we've done some acquisitions. And so that allows us to have partnerships and to move fast. But each of the kind of group companies in the holding, under the holding company, have a very clear mission and focus, but they work together synergistically. And I think it creates a very nice structure. We're still learning and we're still evolving, but that is part of the reason why we relaunched the company as Woven Planet. It's trying to balance out having a broader scale and scope of projects that you're working on, like Woven City, but also a very clear focus so that the teams can make decisions quick, can move fast, and hopefully have positive impact.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to come back to Woven City, but before that, Toyota traditionally is a fairly conservative company with a lot of focus on safety. As a result, hasn't always rushed into introducing the newest technologies first. Wants to make sure that they're right and working properly. Nothing wrong with that, but can Woven Planet be seen as an incubator? I think you've used the word incubator before to try some of those new ideas more quickly, kind of in parallel to the parent company, and then bring those back into Toyota. And it sounds like that's what you did with Teammate before you came Woven Planet. So do you see Woven Planet influencing Toyota's overall culture over time? And how do you see that maybe playing out?
Yes, that's a great question. I mean, absolutely, we aim to be a company that is innovating in the mobility space and bringing to market all kinds of new technology and features, and we work closely together with all of our partners to do that. I do think that there is a little bit of a misunderstanding about Toyota. Toyota does bring to market world-first products all the time. It's just that they don't talk about them that much. They sort of let the market decide and let customers decide. I mean, we shipped our first electric vehicle, the RAV4, in 1996. A lot of people forget that we actually shipped an electric vehicle 25 years ago. It wasn't a market success, but we certainly learned a lot from it, and we, made ever better batteries, and that became, a lot of the things we learned, we were able to bring to market really the world's first, viable, commercially successful hybrid powertrains, and all kinds of advanced safety features. We brought world first pedestrian avoidance on our Lexus Safety Sense. Even our Teammate, is an automated driving system for highway level 2, that if the driver for some reason doesn't take over, the car will pull over to the side of the road instead of stopping in lane like many other systems, which is a lot safer. So we have a lot of world first things that we bring to market. It's just that we don't toot our own horn that much. We let customers judge whether or not we've done something good, and then try to adapt and learn from it. But absolutely, I see Woven Planet as strongly positioned to try to help lead in the mobility space. With Woven City, we see this as a strategic asset that where we can accelerate our development of automated driving and safety technology, and hopefully work together with all of our partners and colleagues in the Toyota Group to bring great products that have the tradition of reliability and trust and quality that our customers expect. So it's a big mandate, but I do think that innovation does require the ability to learn, and a good way to learn is to try something new and see how it works. And that's absolutely the spirit of experimentation and entrepreneurship that we're trying to adopt here at Woven Planet.
Do you see Woven Planet ever becoming a customer-facing brand, or is it like Alphabet going to stay more in the background and let the various products that come out of these efforts and transition into the other parts of the Toyota Group, get the fame, I guess?
I think probably the latter, but one of the nice things about the structure we have is it's quite flexible. Another reason that we launched this structure is we just completed 2 strategic acquisitions that now have established Woven Planet offices in Silicon Valley, New York, Seattle, London, in addition to our Tokyo and other Japan-based offices. So that allows us to grow flexibly, and we may end up having some consumer-facing brand, but at the time we're really focused on working with our partner companies to supply technology to deliver more value, and think about how some of the product brands may be strengthened with Woven Planet technology. So maybe someday it'll be powered by Woven Planet, but I'm not sure, if customers will directly face our brand.
So getting into some of those acquisitions and investments, over the last several years, Woven Planet and Toyota made quite a few investments, numerous companies in the automated driving space, including, you've had TRI, I think, kind of kicked it off, but there's also the investments in Uber ATG and now Aurora since that transaction, May Mobility, and your most recent acquisition of Level 5 from Lyft. Do you expect to eventually bring some of those things together more closely under the umbrella, or do you see them remaining in parallel? Are you kind of trying to hedge your bets with different efforts where there's some overlap? How's that play out in the AV space?
Yeah, I think there has been some amazing progress in the last 10 years in this technology, but there's still a lot of unknowns and a lot of uncertainties and a capability gap, frankly, between the dream of having an AI system that could drive as well as a person. And because of that uncertainty, there's different approaches that are being taken. People are trying out new things, and we're trying to learn and to be cutting edge, and learning through partnerships, through our own in-house efforts, as well as investments that we can make will help us stay on top and part of the cutting edge. And everything that has been evolving over the past couple of years is aimed at maximizing learning and helping us get ready for this technology that we do know will have a big transformative effect on mobility. So for me, our in-house efforts with TRI and at Woven Planet, we know that not all the good ideas are going to come from us, that there's a lot of smart people working really hard, trying out different things. So I think hedging bets is a good way to look at it, but also every market is very different. Every part of the world has different needs, different regulations. Each society has a different willingness to accept or adopt automated driving technology. Some of my friends in Brazil are saying, please, ship it today. We don't want any more human drivers. But, everyone's different. And so I think because of that uncertainty, it makes sense strategically to make multiple bets and to try to learn, and also to do strategic partnerships as well. So that's the approach that we've been able to take. Not everybody can do that. We're fortunate to have enough resources and capability to be able to do multiple engagements. But I do see at the end, I see a lot of this technology dramatically improving safety, which is one of the reasons why Toyota has been pretty consistent. There's been a lot of talk about driverless taxis, and that is definitely a very important use case. But fundamentally, the perception, the prediction, and the planning technology that goes into those systems can really, really enhance safety. It's just like automatic emergency braking has made such a positive impact on reducing rear-end collisions. Even if the driver is inattentive or fails to react, the system can help a lot. And so there's over 1 million people dying every year from traffic accidents. We know that this technology can make that number a lot smaller, but we need to invest in it and commercialize it, and we've got to learn.
You mentioned earlier mapping as one of the areas you're looking at. Another of your recent acquisitions was Carmera, a really interesting startup doing crowdsourced maps. Do you see that technology from Carmera as something that might get integrated into Toyota sooner rather than later? Toyota sells across the various brands, 10 million vehicles a year globally. And that's, and most of those now, or at least a significant proportion of them are equipped with cameras. Do you see that technology being fairly quickly moved into Toyota vehicles in the near term to start helping build out maps and maybe building a competitor to something like Mobileye's RAM platform, their road experience management platform?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we have had a lot of great progress. And, we worked with Carmera for the past 3 years, and Toyota had announced even back in 2016 and 17 our crowdsourced computer vision-based mapping synthesis technology for road surface imagery. So now it's really trying to commercialize that and bring that to scale. So absolutely, I think one of the annoying things about road surfaces and road geometry is that it changes all the time. Lane markings get repainted, there's construction, but you can crowdsource the maintenance of that map data, and that's really our value proposition at Woven Planet for our automated mapping platform. We can utilize probe imagery to repair and keep up to date and fresh all of the mapping data. And that is scalable with the volume and size of Toyota. And in fact, Woven Planet has always been thinking even beyond just Toyota. I mean, Toyota is a huge company, but they're still about 10% of the business. So, I think for Woven Planet, we really want to be a company that can change the whole industry.
Do you see technologies like Carmera's mapping or even some of the AV technologies as something that Toyota would be potentially willing to license to other automakers to utilize in their vehicles?
Yes, I think so. There's, all options are on the table. I do think that we have had a history of licensing our technology, whether it's our hybrid powertrains, to other OEMs, because it's the right thing to do for our planet to reduce carbon emissions in a practical, scalable way. But I think, for this especially advanced safety technology and technology related to zero emissions, like open sourcing all of our 6,000 fuel cell patents and open sourcing much of the safety technology. These are things that are morally right, I think, for the company. Things that are really competitive that customers will differentiate. Toyota may hesitate, but I do think that if it's related to safety, reducing traffic, reducing pollution, those are definitely things that we want to basically be open about to help push the industry forward.
We talked a lot about on the technology side, but what about the mobility services? Is that something that's also being developed within Woven City? Is that an area that you've got responsibility for?
Yes, absolutely. The goal of Woven City is really to become a human-centered living laboratory that will explore three kinds of mobility and their intersection: the mobility of people, the mobility of goods, and the mobility of information, and how those intersect. And in some ways, this pandemic that we've been suffering through has accelerated that mission, because so many people have ordered things to be delivered, whether it's food or packages, and or explored virtual telecommuting, working from home, like we are talking today. I think this kind of technology that is at the intersection of how people live and work and communicate is really important for the cities of our future. And that's one thing we're trying to accelerate and learn at scale with the Woven City project. So services that provide those mobility, we're also looking at smart energy, sustainable energy. We're looking at smart agriculture. Food loss in Japan, and it's very similar in the other parts of the world, is over 50%. There's a lot of reasons for that. A mismatch between supply and demand, improper storage, just waste at the grocery store or at the restaurants. But Toyota has built up this Toyota production system of managing a supply chain with no waste and just in time. And so we think that some of the things that we learn about the supply chain for manufacturing cars may be able to help smart urban agriculture, so you can get fresh vegetables or herbs or ingredients just in time delivered to your home in exactly the quantity you need, instead of having to overbuy when you only need a little bit. And so we're looking at all of that. I'm also I think for technology development, we should never develop technology just for technology's sake. It should always be to support happy, healthy human life. And that's something that the president really believes in. He wants Toyota not to be just a car company, but to be a company that mass produces happiness. So I think it goes back to his great-grandfather, Sakichi Toyota, looking at his mother weaving and how hard she was working and saying, I'd like to invent a machine to help her weave cloth. And that's actually the DNA of the name Woven. It's going back to that original philosophy of building technology to help people. And Toyota still makes most of the world's automated looms in Toyota Industries, but of course, in a very entrepreneurial move, Kiichiro Toyota took the profits from the weaving business to start a car company. And I think President Akio Toyoda is taking that same playbook, saying, I've got profitable car business. Can I take the profits from that business and invest for the future? And that's what Woven Planet is. President Toyota made a personal investment also in Woven Planet. And so there's a very strong commitment. And we have a lot of responsibility. We have a huge mountain to climb, but we've got Mount Fuji to inspire us. And we are moving forward.
So just to be clear, is Woven City, is there actually a physical location where you're prototyping all of this that is called Woven City, or is that just the name of a project that's encompassing a number of other things?
It's actually a place. It is about 0.7 square kilometers at the base of Mount Fuji in Shizuoka, Japan, at the former site of the Toyota Motor East Japan factory. And the history actually goes back to the great tsunami 10 years ago in 2011 that devastated the Tohoku region, led to almost 20,000 people losing their lives. But it wasn't just a personal disaster for the lives of so many families, but it was also an economic disaster because many businesses had closed, people had lost their jobs, people were no longer buying agriculture grown in that region because of fear over Fukushima. And so the president was thinking how Toyota can help, and he decided that the best way was to create thousands of jobs and build a factory in Tohoku to employ people. And they did that. But they had to make the hard decision to close the aging factory that was in Susono at the base of Mount Fuji. So we had this big site, and instead of having this negative decision to close the factory, they turned it into something amazing, which is we're going to actually invest in the region to build a smart city of the future physically at a location that we can move fast. We can change infrastructure. We can learn at scale and deploy these new technologies and services with real customers and people who are using them every day to get to work, to take care of their families, to learn and study. And so that is really the heart and the genesis of the vision of the Woven City idea. So at Consumer Electronics Show in 2020, President Toyota announced it, And then shortly thereafter, Woven Planet was, then TRID, was asked to run the Woven City management team and sort of help push this project forward with a lot of the agile philosophy that we've been utilizing at Woven Planet. Woven Planet is really a blend between the best of what a Silicon Valley software startup company adopts in terms of its working style and culture, and the Toyota production system, attention to detail, quality, and trying to really blend those things together. But in order to have innovation, we know that we can't do it by ourselves. And that's the reason why explicitly the Woven City project is meant to be a project that's beyond just one place. It's really to build and accelerate the development of technology for the entire world, because in fact, our cities of the world have the same issues of pollution, traffic, safety, sustainable energy. All of these things are really important for human life going forward. And we want and we hope that Woven City will become a catalyst and an accelerator, and that the Toyota Group can help lead the world in solving some of these really hard problems. So that's really our grand ambition and mission. It is a beautiful place with a wonderful view of Mount Fuji. So we were able to successfully break ground in February, and we've got a camera mounted on a building taking a time-lapse photography of all the construction. So I hope to put together a reel so you can watch everything being built. But it's really, really exciting. It's going to take quite a while to build out the entire area, but the president has said that this is a city that's never finished. It's always evolving. And in the same way, our current cities of today are like that. Nobody would ever say, "Oh,
Yeah.
Manhattan's completed."
One look at all the construction cranes, and you can tell it's definitely not quite done yet. All right. Well,
exactly.
Yeah.
Ever evolving. That is what we aim for.
Well, thank you for your time today, James. This has been a great conversation, and hopefully one of these days I'll be able to visit Woven City and see what you created there.
We would absolutely love to have you here. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to leave up holiday decorations year-round. Others have the need to use their garage as practice space for their new metal band. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.